Hi, everyone. This is Isa Tees.
And this is Raphael, and welcome back to Relationships Done Different.
Today is a special day because we're going to speak about giving. What does giving look like in a relationship? Well, first of all, this is an important subject because many women are about giving, and then some more giving. And then when they give, they get pissy and angry and upset and resentful, and they bury their feelings because they're giving without knowing it many times, not always, so don't everybody get their hackles up already, but rather than just giving because they want to give unconditionally, they're giving because there's an underlying fear. In fact, most people give because there is an underlying fear going on that if they don't give or they don't acquiesce or if they don't do something that's going to make the other person happy, then they are afraid of the loss. The loss might be the rejection, which means you're getting loss of love. It might mean that the person is going to not be kind to you, you're going to get attitude, you're going to get the look, or you're going to get all kinds of things, none of which make us feel usually very good. Therefore, giving is not something that helps us feel oh so great because it's not pure, it's not real. It's not really from a place that we are in our deepest core wanting to do. I thought I heard a grunt over there. Were you trying to say something?
I was about to, but I saw you were mid-mouth, so I figured I'd wait. Are you saying that all giving usually comes from that place of basically fear and wanting something out of it? That surprises me, and I bet it might surprise a few listeners, because there are some people who just give, it seems to me, under the, just the goodness of their heart. They want to do something good for people, good for humanity, etc. So could you distinguish that and make that a little clearer for me?
There are some circumstances where what you're saying is true, but a good majority of the giving, when people are really honest and authentic within themselves and they look underneath what they're doing and why they're doing it. Remember, we've spoken about the payoff, that we do everything for a payoff. Yep. Everything's for a payoff.
We just did that a few weeks ago.
So based on the fact that we know that we do everything for a payoff, what that means is that when we give, if we're going to be really honest with ourselves, we look at why we're giving. Almost always, I won't say absolute, but almost always it's because we're trying to, probably many of you have heard, we're trying to gain points in the relationship. Many, even you and I, it's been a long time since we've done this, said, did I get any extra points for that?
I say that all the time.
So therefore, we are doing what it is that we're doing because we're trying to get quote unquote points, or we're trying to get somebody to feel obligated to us, or we're trying to get people to feel like they're special, so we then will be endearing to them, which means they're going to be nicer to us. And if they're nicer to us, then of course we feel more acknowledged, and we feel more acknowledged, that equates to love, and down the whole cycle it goes. So some of you are probably thinking, well, what the hell? Why should I even bother giving? And it's not that you don't give. Remember, this work is about awareness. This is about taking you deeper into knowing yourself, knowing how the relationship is serving you to become very astutely connected to what you do, why you do it, and what your purpose is behind that, because then you can make decisions about whether you want to continue to do that or not. If you want to continue doing it, great. There's no problem. There's no judgment. If you don't want to do that, then great, no problem, no issue. because there isn't any right or wrong to it. It's about awareness, 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 awareness. So when we're talking about awareness, it just means that we are seeing things from a viewpoint that is a bigger picture, a more macro view, if you will. And from there, we don't always react, respond, or be the same way as we would be if we are down here tricking ourselves, if we're fooling ourselves into saying, oh, I only did that because I love you. Well, think about that one, by the way. When you were young, did you ever have your parents beat the heck out of you and say, I'm only doing this because I love you? You know, there's some stuff in most people that equate the pain with the only because I love you. When you're giving, then you are putting yourself in a position to look at what is it that you are expecting in return. And as I said, occasionally it's like nothing, but get really honest with yourself, because that's not always true. Does that answer that?
I'm a little confused. For me, I would say about a number of years after really ensconcing in this work, and as we would go through our little peaks and valleys, so to speak, of which we've always had some, that I made a decision that I just wanted to, I just didn't want to be judging anymore. I didn't want to be crappy anymore. I just wanted to love you more and more. And I've actually taken that on. So every time, now this is for me, every time something that would come up where I have a choice about doing something nice or screw it kind of thing, I have always just continually wanted to do it out of the love, to create a really bonded, a really close relationship. Are you saying that that's my payoff and that's why I'm doing it?
I'm saying that your conscious mind absolutely wants that. And I'm saying that there are, I am sure, times where you're doing it out of the unconditionality of whom it is that you truly are. I'm also saying, if you look underneath that a good majority of the time that anybody does anything, it's because they are looking at how it is that they are going to feel. If we remember that there's nobody here on the planet but us, we're doing things that are going to make us, and you also remember that in other episodes we've spoken about how one of the number one things that we feel that we need as people is safety. So if we're just showering people with stuff and it isn't really pure and clean, then the underlying thing there is that we are looking for some conscious or subconscious return, which is usually safety or whatever. Now, I want everybody to really be clear. I'm not trying to blow out your good humor about giving, because that's not my purpose. My purpose is to help you see that there's many, many different ways that we be in ourselves, in our lives, and in our relationships. And I'm asking you to look a little deeper than perhaps you ever have before, so you can be really authentic, really pure, and really aware of what's going on. And I'm also not saying not to do that. With awareness, the most profound thing that you can do is just observe what it is that you're doing and see it for what it is. Because what we do because we feel that that's going to give us something in response that is going to give us the kind of response that we're looking for. Safety, being loved, any of those things and all those things that we were just speaking about. Does that make sense?
It does. So I'm going to just shift gears just like 20 degrees here. And are we bordering on the issues or the reasons we're codependent? When we have a codependency with someone, we want to make someone happy. So basically, they're going to make us happy. Is that the kind of payoff thing you're speaking about? Now, I know codependency is it's a pretty broad subject, but I just wanted to bring that up because I think we're bordering on that and as soon as we talk about being in the subconscious.
First of all, codependency is absolutely true for all of mankind. I mean, that's a pretty big blanket statement, but it is also very accurate. And that is because we are all intertwined as one. And we're codependent because we need each other for things. We need somebody who works the electricity so we have it so we can do this podcast. We need people who grow the food, to package the food, to get the food to us. We need people to do all the things that get done in this world so we can exist. And we are in a codependent kind of situation. That's on a basic level. There's another level of codependency that comes with a deep sense of emotional codependency, meaning that we feel as though we cannot, will not, or sometimes it's as simple as I don't want to exist or go on without another person or certain circumstances occurring in our lives. But if we look at that, it's also because we have a payoff for that. Because when we're codependent, it means that A, we have given ourselves away to that person or those people because we're dependent upon them for something. It's really, really, really important. Everyone, please hear me. This is not a judgment. This is not good, bad, right, or wrong. This is the way the planet works. This is the way we as humans have been programmed, if you will. This is the orchestration of life. My job is to help awaken you to the way the game called life, if you will, plays out here, because the more knowledgeable you are about the rules of the game and the way it happens, the freer you will be. The more you can observe it without feelings of judgment or concern or making yourself or anyone else right or wrong, the freer you will be, which means the happier that you will be, which means the more connected you will feel internally. So I can't remember what your question was, but did I answer it?
Yes, that's fine. But I want to bring this back to relationships now. The title of the podcast is "What Does Giving Look Like in a Relationship?" We've talked about awareness. We've talked about the subconscious or the underlying thing of what's in it for me, the payoff. How or what can we offer to our listeners to help them amplify and magnify the connection or the intimacy or the heartfelt feeling they have for their partner?
Okay, so always remember, everyone, that I speak at a lot of different levels, and invariably it seems that I start out with...
No wonder I get confused all the time.
Seriously. That I start out with the deep stuff, what's under the covers, no pun intended, place. And then, thanks to your support, we bring it back to what I'll call the material world or your day-to-day living stuff. And believe it or not, I was going to get there. What's important about relationship is that it is a give or take kind of situation unless you decide that it isn't going to be. And what that means is some people are so into themselves that they're going to do whatever they want to do, and if somebody else doesn't like it or doesn't want to be a part of it, they can take a walk. It doesn't really matter to them. They're certainly not attached to having somebody agree with or align to what it is that they want or who it is that they are. And then there are others that will do everything in the world for their partner and with little or no concern about what's true within themselves. So the first thing that is important here is that you take a look at yourself and see where it is that you fit in between these two places. And maybe it is in between, and maybe you're at one extreme or the other. First of all, most of you know that my number one thing is love of self. So it's extremely important that you stay in touch with how you honestly feel. And the more desirous you are of knowing how you feel and what's true for you, the better it is. And it doesn't mean that you can't change the way you see or perceive something. Just because that's the way you've always done it, quote unquote, doesn't mean it's the way you have to do it now. So I'll give you an example. Raphael wants to go to this marketing thing in Los Angeles. I don't feel a big draw to do that. It's not something that I feel like really blows my skirt up. And so we've been back and forth about this over and over and over again. And being 100% true to myself, I don't really feel the quote unquote feeling that I would want to go, and I have a thought process that it's not something that is necessary, whatever my thought process is. And as we've gone over this over the last several days, I've looked at it, and I know that he really, really wants to do this. So I've done a lot of inner work over the last couple of days looking at, okay, what's my resistance to doing this? And on and on, what's underneath that, and doing all the self-introspection. And I've had to look at, am I just planting my feet in the sand, so to speak, or the cement, because I don't want to go, because I don't feel like going out of town, I don't feel like, whatever all my reasons are. Or am I going to look at it like, this is really important to him, and I know that there'll always be a gift there for me, because I know unequivocally, positively, that whatever experience I have is a great experience. I may not think so in that very second, or my mind may come up with ideas or thought processes that say that it wasn't that great at the moment, or whatever I'm in that moment. But I absolutely do know that it's true. So based on that, based on the fact that I desired to give to him, and therefore give to myself, not just because I'm giving to him, but because I know that there'll be a gift there for me, I said, okay, sign me up, I'll go. And I will go with an open heart and an open mind and a willingness to see what it is that I will acquire from this experience. And I know something great will come out of it, because life always brings me something great, because I live by the premise and the knowing that the universe is always, always conspiring to make my life more awesome than I could ever dream or imagine. Now, one of the things that I looked at was, well, if in my heart of hearts I really don't want to go, then am I going because I just want to acquiesce? Or is it because of something else? And that's when I had to make the decision. Am I going just because I want to stop getting the flack? Or am I going because I really believe that there'll be something there? And I made the decision that I really feel there'll be something there. And I also know that it would be supportive for him. So in going, I am being true to myself, because I know that inside I'm going to acquire something really awesome. And the side effect and the bonus is he gets to have what it is that he wants, and I get to be a more giving person, because I can be pretty strong about what I like and what I don't like, and what I want and what I don't want, and what I'll do and what I won't do.
Well, that's good. We're going to record that and make that a soundbite.
I'm sure that you will. So because I'm really clear about what I'm committed to and what I'm not, I sometimes have to give a little bit more. I have to make what people's egos might say is a concession. I may need to make what some people would call compromise. I don't look at this even one iota like a compromise. I'm not compromising anything. I'm going because I'm going to get a gift. And as I said a moment ago, the side effect and the bonus is that he doesn't have to fight me anymore, and I'm going, and I will be open-hearted and open-minded about it. So it's very important that you know yourself, know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and are you giving because you're afraid that somebody isn't going to like you, or because they're going to be mad at you, or they're going to punish you with the things that they do. You know how you manipulate each other if you're in a relationship currently, or with your parents or with your kids or whatever. We all have our tools for manipulation. And just look at yourself internally, because if you're giving because you have an underlying fear of what results you'll get if you don't give, that is not giving. That is masochism. That is, there's a word I'm looking for. It's not just masochism, but it's self-sabotage, because you're sabotaging your own true self. And when that occurs, what happens is that you will feel angry, you will feel suppressed. And many people, I started earlier in this conversation saying that women do this a lot, and that's why many women are very angry at their partners, because they've been doing things they don't want to do for a really long time, and they're giving in ways that are not really true for them. Now, here's another caveat that we even go deeper with, and that is that if you are giving because you're afraid of the results, then you're not communicating what's true for you. And so the communication is very, very important, that you speak to whomever it is that you're giving to, that of what it is. And instead of saying, I'm going because if I don't, you're just not going to get off my back. That's not giving. But rather, if you can say, I'm going because I know there's a gift in it for me, and I'd like to support you because I know it's really important to you. That's a whole nother way of viewing it. So what you get is an option or an opportunity to determine where you're truly coming from.
Okay, I'd like to stop you here. I have 2 points I want to make, but the first one is this. You said twice now that you're doing it because you know there's a gift in it for you, and you're doing it because, in this case, you know that that's something that I want and that you could basically give me a gift of. My question to you is, do you have to have, and I can't imagine this because this is something that I've been doing, because I related this whole thing to, when we were first married and you would say, come on, let's go to the family parties and all that. And that wasn't like my favoriteest thing to do, but I ultimately saw that it was important to you, and I would just do it because I wanted to give that to you, not thinking consciously that there was anything in it for me other than making you happy. But so I see that now in this whole thing, which is kind of cool. And what I really am asking is, does it really matter if there's some gift in it for you? Is that a rationalization? Or can it be, I just want to give you something because I know it's important to you?
Yes, you can just give to someone because it's important to you. But think about when you give me something that you know is important to me and you just want to do that, how do you feel?
I feel really good.
That's your payoff.
Okay, I could accept. I understand that.
That's all. It's like I said, it's that when you can see the payoff, and if the payoff is I want to feel good, so I'm going to do this, great. As long as that is the truth for you, then it's very, very powerful, and you're conscious of it. But don't think that anyone is giving just because they want to make that other person happy without them having some kind of something come back to them or some kind of experience. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, well, and I'll just take that one half step further. When one gives, one feels good. When you give to, let's say, a homeless person, or you give to cancer, or any of those things, it makes you feel good, yes, and you're doing something good. So I guess your point is that we will feel good as we give. As we give, we get.
Yes, because you can't separate giving and receiving. It's impossible to do that. And that's really the point of what it is that I'm saying. When we give, we are going to receive something back. And what we receive back is how we feel about it. And because we as humans really want to feel good and we're always moving towards the pleasure principle, which is to feel good, then what we learn by experimentation and by training, what is it that I can do that's going to make me feel good? What's my training been for that? So for me, I learned that if I gave to people, if I was there for people, if I supported them in certain ways, it made me feel good. And that's one of the reasons that I became such an expert at what it is that I do, is because I get a payoff. I like helping people because it helps me feel good. The key here is that you cannot get attached to that. So I do what it is that I do. I coach, I do retreats, I do podcasts, I do Saturday talks, I do blogs, I do all these different things, and I do them because they are fun for me to do. That's my first payoff. And when I'm coaching, I do it because it's really fun for me to give people options and help them wake up to things that they had never even thought of before, that they can make different choices about if they choose to. And I don't have an attachment to whether they do or whether they don't. So in other words, what I kind of look at myself as is like, in those of you that have been to retreats and been around my work for a while, I use this analogy or this example of being at a really high-end party, and you're walking around with your silver platter, and you've got escargot and champagne and all these other things on it, and you walk up to someone and you offer them these options. What would you like? And if somebody says, "Oh, escargot, gag me with a spoon, there's no chance," does that mean that I'm the one here holding the platter, the waitress or whatever, that has anything to do with me? The guy doesn't like escargot. So instead of saying thank you or moving on or whatever, I could throw the whole platter on the floor and go, "Oh my God, this guy doesn't like me. There's nothing I'm going to do that's going to be right. I've really messed up my job." It doesn't have anything to do with the person who's holding the tray. And that's what's true, like when I do coaching. I offer things to people, and if it works for them, great. If it doesn't work for them, great. And the same exact thing is true here with podcasts. I'm going to give you probably a gazillion things that I have found work for me and with people that I've worked with. But if it's not a fit for you, throw it away. Don't keep it. Keep what works and give away what doesn't. And I always ask people to have an open mind with that. Well, what if there was a possibility to that? And that's what it is that is going to help you stay open-minded and in a continuous state of growth and expansion.
Okay, let's have some more. Let's have some escargot.
I want to champagne.
And champagne. Okay, we're getting close to our time here for this segment. So what I'd like to do is I want to just bring it back to a question I've been waiting to ask for a long time, or a distinction I'd like to make is we do something because there's a payoff. Okay, we've established that. That's clear. That payoff is either because it makes us feel good, or, in my distinction, is something that we think we, quote, should, quote, do. Something that we feel obligated to do. Something that we feel people won't like us if we don't do. So we have that dichotomy. So is there a distinction between those two circumstances? Giving to feel good and giving out of obligation?
Well, there's a very big difference because...
But, I mean, okay, I understand there's a difference, but in terms of... So we have to know when we're giving out of I should rather than I want to.
Physician, know thyself. Yes, that's why we do what it is that we do here, is to help you know yourself so you know where you're coming from. If you're giving out of obligation, you are going to take in, harbor, and probably stuff away feelings of resentment and anger. First at yourself, which, because that doesn't feel good, you'll take and you'll project it probably on the person that you quote unquote did it for, which means that you'll probably be passive aggressive, you'll be a little bit irritable, you'll shut them off, you'll do whatever it is that you do because the feeling inside does not feel good. But there was something that I wanted to come back to, and that is that I am an extremely high advocate of giving. I feel that if everyone gave on a continuous basis, and even, now I'm going to probably blow away everything I just said, even without consideration, that's not the correct word, even without spending a whole lot of deep, whatever, figuring it out stuff, but if you just give, and you're staying in touch with how you feel about it, then what occurs is not only do you feel good, but you also help other people feel good. And when you feel good and they feel good, then what occurs is your vibration or your attitude, your altitude, if you will, increases, and so does theirs. And that all by itself helps change the world, because people are influenced by the sense of receiving, even if they don't think that they want to. When they receive what it is that you're giving them, especially if it's, beautiful, loving, whatever things, and that could just be a smile, it could be opening a door for someone, whatever it is, those random acts of kindness help people feel a whole lot better about themselves, and therefore they will see their life differently, which will help them view things from a perspective that allows them to enjoy themselves and other people much more profoundly. So you are always giving a gift when you are giving, and giving is really significant when you give to your partner. When you take on, I'm just going to love you more, and you really do want to love that person more, then you are going to find that that relationship will deepen, and the giving that you're doing will instinctually and retroactively allow the person to feel more loved and lovable, which means that they will express more love than what it is that they did before. Because remember, when you feel loved and lovable, then that means that you feel safe, and safety is mandatory for people to give.
So just to wrap this part of the show up, I just want to, the distinction I want to just throw out there and leave it for everyone is to consider giving as authentic giving, giving from the heart, giving because it'll make me feel good, because it will help someone else feel good, rather than inauthentic giving, which is to serve a purpose or to avoid or not be any of those other aspects that we've talked about. So would you agree that there's authentic giving and then there's inauthentic giving?
You could say that.
I think that's a good way. It makes me feel to distinguish between the two. Mm-hmm. So that's really great. And this has been a fabulous conversation. We have long done a number of giving projects in our history together, and it's always, we want to give to someone else. We want to give to like Isatis was saying, giving to a section of the people she coaches or whatever. And what I would just like to put out there and leave for everyone is that that's the kind of thing you want to do with your spouse. I mean, or your partner? What's the value of giving to someone else and not giving at home, so to speak? And that whole thing about maybe not giving at home or not wanting to or whatever is a function of all the deep scarring and all the other things that we've been talking about in prior podcasts. But again, it's just to be aware of our authenticity.
That's another whole show that we could actually do, is to talk about how people will give to charities and they give to other people and they're really nice to their neighbors and they're nice to their boss or they're nice to everybody. But at home, stand aside because it's dangerous territory, because we well up all the things that we're not happy about and we take them out in the closest place that we have available, to the securest place that we have available. And as I said, that's another whole story. My suggestion is that if you make giving one of your very highest priorities at home, well, to self, at home to your partner, to your children, and out in the world, if that was your focus for living, you would be amazed at where your life goes. You will be amazed, let me tell you. And that's something to contemplate, and I invite you to do that.
Very powerful. Cool. Thank you. Okay, we're going to take a quick break right now, and we will be back in just about a half a minute. Okay, we're back now. And we're now at the part of the show we're going to talk about. We received questions, and before I even say this, we thank the people who have been sending in questions. We really welcome your questions. It gives us a real pulse on how we can be of service to everyone and to answer your questions. So if you have a question, please send it on to us. We look at every one of them. So today's question is, what is your viewpoint on open relationships?
Well, this also could be another whole show, but we're going to, I'm going to just be kind of semi-brief about this. My view of open relationships is my view pretty much about everything, which is do what it is that works for you. If you take away the good, bad, right, wrong from the circumstances, and you look at what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it, and if it feels right and it feels good, then do it. Because society makes up rules that things need to be a certain way. It needs to be this or it needs to be that or whatever. And there's a lot of viewpoints out there about open relationships because it does not look like the moralistic kinds of belief systems that a good majority of people on the planet experience. But what about just being true to yourself? If that's the way that you would like to be in your relationship or in your life, then do that. And simultaneously, do your very best not to be offended or upset if someone doesn't think like you do. So let's say that you're a person who is good with and wants to have an open relationship. And an open relationship, for those of you that, at least what I'm referring to right now, is two people are together, but they are also with other people. And they do that by telling each other or not. It just depends on their agreement with each other. Usually they communicate about that. Yeah, I'm okay if you're with him and I'm okay if you're with her and whatever. And some people talk to each other about it and their experiences, and other people just say, oh, I'm going out with so-and-so tonight. It's really it's a negotiable thing between two people, however it is that you would like. All I ask is that you look inside and again, ask yourself, what's your payoff? Ask yourself, what's the purpose? What is it that you want out of it? And if you just want to experience freedom, then go do whatever you want to do. And you can ask yourself why you're in a relationship that with a significant other or with seemingly one person, and then you both go around and do things with other people. Look at that, and then look at what if you were single and you went around and you did whatever you wanted to do with whomever it is that you wanted to do. I mean, it's such a finite difference between being with somebody or not, except for the rules and regulations that society says that you ought to have. So it's important for you to know what's true in your heart. It's very important that you're hooked up with someone who feels the same way, and you're open and you are completely transparent, and that you're communicating beyond anything that you've ever done before, because the biggest issues that come up in open relationships is that people don't know all of the circumstances or agreements. In other words, the rules aren't clear, and that can many times create a threatening situation. And if you feel threatened, if you feel like jealous or that's not okay with you, then call a spade a spade. Doesn't matter whether you are or whether you aren't. Just be true to yourself and communicate that to your partner.
And one thing I wanted to add is a number of weeks ago we did a podcast, and we also did, as part of our last retreat, how we pick up our beliefs and our programs, and how they lodge in the subconscious, and they're just on our shoulder. They're just knocking on our door for our entire life, and they happen primarily during the first 6 years of life, and it can be something that your parents have told you because they're the people to whom you looked up to as important and godlike, and your teachers, etc. And we develop, and I experience this for myself, of it's even when people have a concept about their bodies, they say, well, if I'm fat, I'm not attractive. That's a belief. Sometimes heavy people are attractive to other people. It's just a belief. There's no right and wrong to it. So the point of this whole thing is that we pick up these social mores about that it's wrong to do anything, to have extramarital affairs or whatever. And the point is, as Isatis was, and those things are ruling in the background, and they really pull on us to get us to act and be in a certain way. So my point is to just be aware of that, and to be aware that you get to choose what you want and what is appropriate for you and in conjunction with your partner.
Okay, good.
Okay, well, all right. So once again, if you have any questions, please send them our way. We are anxious to get some from you. And now we're going to move to the last part of the show, which is how to live in absolute freedom.
Okay, so here's our question. You ready to write it down? And remember, you can always come back and listen to this again. And you can also send this to your friends, by the way. You can also make comments below. You can do so many things.
Or on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah, or all of the above. So here it is. What would it take for me to be more open and more giving right now? What would it take for me to be more open and more giving right now? Whenever you feel yourself pulling back, shutting down, being resistive, ask yourself, what would it take for me to be more open and more giving right now? And the reason that that's so powerful is it will interrupt the restricted feeling that you have and allow yourself to open up to other possibilities, because growth is never ending, and the willingness to look at anything that you have as a belief as possibly not being the only belief, the more expanded and more empowered you will be in your life.
And the happier you'll be as well.
For sure.
Well, okay, so this has been an awesome show, and I'm really appreciative of having this conversation. Giving is so important.
It definitely is. It's going to make a very, very significant shift in your life, and something that Raphael has spoken about before, that if you just kind of went, at least internally, if you're not willing to say it out loud, when your partner just wants to, has the opportunity to trigger you, and you decide to take that hors d'oeuvre off of the plate and you get triggered, you could say, I'm just going to love you more. And your personality or your ego may not let you say that out loud, but at least say it. I'm just going to love you more. Or what would it take for me to be more open and more giving right now? That will interrupt the old programs, because everything that you're doing in your life is from a program. And if you shift your perception about the program or open up other possibilities, then your life really becomes very smooth, very open, and that's where you're going to find happiness.
Remember the concept, authentic giving versus inauthentic giving.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, we will see you next week. Next week, we are going to be speaking about long-distance relationships, what they mean, how they work, and how to make them work if it's right for you. So tune in next week, and we will be talking about long-distance relationships.
Feel a hug, everyone.
Okay, we'll see you soon. Thanks and so much. Good night, everybody.